10 years ago when we first launched this concept, it was the fact that there was a new audience, that this audience
Okay.
was going to be introduced to offers, and the banks, I'm going to use a strong word, desperately needed a better
Sure.
advertising, better loyalty program.
Yeah.
The reason, go a little bit in detail, the reason being is the banks and the retailers were kind of going like this over what's called interchange fees.
Mhm.
Okay. The banks charge a retailer for the use of a credit card.
Yep.
But the retailer's addicted to the credit card because that's how you and I as consumers have been trained to spend, right? And that's how
Especially
we're going to buy
now.
things.
Yeah.
Right. Especially now. We may want to carry some credit, you know. We don't want to carry cash. And there's so the at that time, a decade ago, the retailers pushed back and said, look, man, you can't charge us so much. Right. And the federal government got involved. There's a whole bunch of there's a huge rabbit
Still
hole we
are.
could go down.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right.
Oh, billions and
Yeah.
billions of dollars of antitrust cases and lawsuits and all of this going on. And interchange fees are starting to come down. Well, what's that mean? That means the banks don't have that margin, that extra margin to fund these loyalty programs themselves. So that's when me as an advertising guy, I was there, I happened to be speaking with some banks about their loyalty programs. And they said, man, we just can't fund these programs. So I was kind of watching a loyalty program opportunity with a big bank go up in smoke because they said we didn't have the funding. And I was like, wait a minute, you don't fund them. The advertisers do. And boom, it was born, right? And that was the day that we kind of figured this out. And everybody said, whoa, wait a minute. What are you talking about? Banks hadn't thought of that. They were just like, this is what we do. You know, we make our money on this interchange. We put it back into our loyalty program. We give a little piece to the consumer. Well, as soon as now it's called brand funded or merchant funded rewards, right? So that's the foundation of why this launched. Then we got into what you're talking about, Ann, is the differentiators of what's today. And of course, we've got retail media networks now. And by the way, I think the independent apps that we talked about are going to have a battle. Suddenly they're fighting against the retailer for that audience, right?
Right.
So they're shifting their business models to become, they're able to step up and say, look, retailers, we've been running retail media networks, ad platforms like this for years. Use us. Just let us be your white label. So you see that going on. The fact is that the consumer, there's a lot of opportunity for the consumer to be reached in other channels too. So we tend, when talking to a retailer, to say to them two things. One, we're an extension of your retail media network. We have an audience that's massive, right? And it's active and it's a trusted environment. It's a environment where the consumer's logging in, they trust their bank. If the bank's telling them, hey, look at this, they're interested to look at it. They'll click on, right? Excuse me. They will activate an offer and then they'll redeem the offer and they won't think somebody's trying to pull something over on them. There's a lot of fraud going on. So they trust their bank. So this is a good environment for a brand to be careful and be able to reach a big brand. I mean, a big audience. So that's one piece. The other piece is, and this one gets into detail, we don't go too far here, but there's an offset of this interchange. So now the retailer's coming into the bank and saying, where they've always said, well, how much do you really give me for all this interchange fee that I pay you? Now the bank can say, I can give you advertising audience. So it's an offset of value. So one of the big things that the retailers are noticing is they're saying, wait a minute, okay, I pay you, but you're going to put my brand in your app and push my retail chain to your 10, 20, 30, 40 million consumers or cardholders. Okay, that's cool. So there's a secondary piece there that makes sense for the retailer.